just have to love them.
Yeah.
As hard as you can. And that will give them as much armor as anything else. And in fact, that's the armor that nobody else can give them.
Hey, all you rad dads out there.
I thought kind of a nice way to start this, and this actually came to me last night. I was one of those guys who was out in the pit in front of you, kind of taking notes on my phone. But it was because of something you said, Matthew. Mm-hmm. You said, you were talking about Matilda.
Yeah. And
you were talking about something, well, you were talking about how obviously the song is about kind of being bullied, being made fun of, for being who you are. Right? Yeah. And you said that kind of the way you got through that, or one of the things that helped you get through that was your dad.
Yeah.
And I think you said you dedicated the song to dads who accept their boys just as they are. And that really spoke to me in that moment. Just obviously thinking about doing this and, thinking about our focus with Rad Dads Edmonton and the Rad Dad Show. And that was just really cool and really heartfelt and heartwarming. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciated that. And I thought that's a really good tone for this interview. So thank you for saying that last night. And that's a beautiful song. And
thank you very much.
Both me and my kids really love that song. So I wanted to thank you guys. And I wanted to, because we have limited time, sort of focus this a little bit on the here and now, on what's in front of me now, right? Because you guys have just released, in September, you released Moon Mirror, your new album. And it's been really well received, right? Like you have to know that, right? Like it's been met with some great critical acclaim. So I'm sort of curious, were you expecting that? Is that new for you? Is that exciting for you? Is that like, and so part of why I'm wondering that maybe is because your last record came out right before the pandemic hit, right? So you didn't get that, that kind of trajectory that happens after you release the album, the tour happens and all this stuff happens. It just, everything shut down. So was that different with Moon Mirror?
Well, it's been great. It has been a bit of a surprise, and we tend to, we only put out records we like, so we were psyched with it, and the way we're psyched with every record. But it being so warmly received is just a big old bonus, right?
Yeah. No, I gotta agree. You never know. It's kind of like starting again every time you put something out. You never know what to expect of people. You're kind of always starting again from the beginning in a way. So, yeah, you're happy. I was, I didn't. Sometimes in records, like I really don't know. I'm in the recording, obviously, but sometimes I don't know what's going to actually be until everything's done, and then you hear it fully realized. And things that I was like, oh, gee, I hope that works. And then things that I was slightly anxious about, those all blew away like that. When the record finally got pieced together.
What's funny is I feel like I only really signed off on the record. It had already been out for like a week, but I did a thing at Amoeba and this little in-store, and after playing I was saying hi to people and they played the record over the stereo, and that was the first time that I was like, oh, it's fine.
I'm okay.
Until then there were little things I'm like, think about should that have been different, but yeah, no, it's been great.
Yeah,
we're thrilled.
That's fantastic. And Louie, what about you? Like this record features you in a bit of a different way.
And that's a surprise too. But I kind of had more expectations about the other one in a way, the one before, because we were geared up, we were like ready to go, and then all of a sudden the COVID hit, and we just were like
the rug is pulled out from underneath you.
And then this one, so I just kind of was like held back, getting psyched about it, even though I love this album a lot. So happy for the response though. Yeah.
It's a fantastic record.
And also, we also were making it in the same place we made the same. Right. So it was kind of like a do-over somehow,
And do you feel in any way, because of the fact that you made it in the same place at Rockfield, does it feel like a continuation of the previous record? Does it feel like something new for you?
It's a little bit of a continuation. It's the same producer who's sitting right over there.
Yeah.
Ian Laughton is our tour manager and sound man extraordinaire. And so, there was a continuity of team, and it was Nick Bryan, the same engineer. Yeah, I mean, they are all their own thing. And yet, the thing is that, when every time we make a record, like I'm always asked, like, what's the theme, etc.
Yeah.
And there isn't one really, except that they all do fit together. So it is one long continuous thing, and the themes that are on one record carry over to the next.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and this doesn't really have to do with parenting exactly, but last night we were playing Cold to See Clear.
Yeah.
Or a couple of nights ago, and I realized for the first time that it's about ADHD, and I wrote it before I really had that condition on my mind. And then I realized that pretty much our entire catalog, at least the songs I've written, are largely about that, largely about why is it so hard to be an adult? Why is it so hard to keep my life on track?
Yeah.
You know, especially when romantic concerns went away, and then it became more about just living an adult and being an adult and being a parent too.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mentioned in front of me now. I mean, that sort of like really speaks to that, right? And you've spoken about sort of the moment that sort of led to that song. So maybe you could tell us about that.
Yes, it's an embarrassing story. I was cleaning up the house. I had noise canceling headphones on. I was vacuuming, and my wife, Emily, said, could you fill the bath? I want to put a little bleach in it and give it a good clean, spring cleaning. I say, yes, of course. I start filling the bath. I keep my noise-canceling headphones on and keep vacuuming, sure that I would, of course, remember in 5 or 6 minutes to stop the bath. I did not. It overflowed. The alarms in the house were tripped by the water, thank goodness. And it was a disaster. But everything was fine, and, we have a good, happy household. Nobody was mad. The ceiling dried out. The electricity came back on.
Yeah.
But I was, but our son had been scared by all the noise, and I just felt, I was just deeply ashamed and deeply troubled again that this is my brain.
How could I let this happen?
I will malfunction. I do malfunction. So I mean, I assume it's a human, we all sort of screw up, but I screw up a little bit more than most. But anyway, I got over it by promising myself I would not multitask anymore.
And how's that going?
A little better.
Yeah.
Maybe every promise that I'll change forever maybe gets you 5% closer to the goal. And I've definitely gotten 5% closer to just monotasking, keep my mind in the game, do what I have to do, and think about everything else next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is, I think that's something that really speaks to me from that parenting angle too, right? Is that's actually such a hard thing to do. And I'll say, like, we've interviewed like over 100 people on our podcast, and we kind of, ask about challenges as a parent. And that's one thing that comes up all the time. Is how do I just stay present in the moment, right? Like, we have so much going on. And your kids are kind of pulling at your arm or, whatever, and want your attention and want your focus. And how do you have to, like, I find you have to really remind yourself to, like, okay, this other thing that I'm stressed about is not important.
Well, I think also the ability to think about a lot of things at once is one of our strengths, humans, right?
Yep.
We can do a lot, and it's kind of how we get a lot
Sets
done,
us
and
apart,
how we make associations in different subjects. We keep firing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're sitting with your kid, sometimes there's this conscious thing of like, I have to stop being that and trying to think of everything and be everywhere at once and just be here. And it is hard, but I'm sure we've all, you do it. And it feels great once, it feels like such a relief too, when you remember to do it. And then you're like, that's it. I'm doing the important thing, and I'm going to want these moments to last forever too.
Well, and you're maybe able to do less, right? Like less things.
Yeah.
But what you do is so much more meaningful, right? Like those moments you have with your kids, or whatever it is, when you sit down to write or you sit down to practice or whatever, and you put your phone away or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's like this. I don't actually. My phone's right there.
Yeah.
I was feeling for my pocket here, but like this is the worst.
Sure.
Thing to happen to us in terms of our focus, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So does that resonate with you guys too? Like from a parenting perspective, that like ability to focus and to be present in the moment, is that something that you have to work on as well, and something you're kind of thinking about?
I'm like an inveterate list maker. I usually keep things focused by actually writing them down and reading them. And like, so if I see them visually, even really basic stuff, like basic self-maintenance kind of stuff. So in that way, that's how I sort of and I'll write down remember to find fun things to do with your daughter.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I do it, because I know that if I'm left to my own devices, my mind will wander off and I'll forget a number of important things. So that's the tool that I really lean on. And now my daughter's she's turning 14 next week. I gotta remember, I gotta get her something else. Yeah, so our relationship is different now than it was. She's not as hands-on. I don't really even live in the same structure with her anymore. So I see her less, but I know her personality is great. I'm happy that we have a strong relationship, and I'm really intent on keeping it that way. It's really vitally important to me. I never would have thought how important it was. I mean, you can't imagine that kind of thing.
Yeah. It was funny, actually. I shared it with you, but your daughter reached out to us, in a comment on your episode.
Oh, it was hilarious.
And it was I didn't know my dad was doing this. And he is a rad dad. Yeah. And I love hearing that. That's what
that was so great.
That's what we're doing it for.
No,
so
she's a prize. She's the greatest thing. Hayla, her third middle name is Hayla.
Yeah.
Hey, hello. I had to get that in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Louie, you are the hardest working guy on this tour right now, because you're in both bands.
I'm looking at my watch. Do I have to
and you have to go to sound check right away. And so not only and so I think this. Am I correct in recalling that you joining Not a Surf officially sort of happened on the last record, right? Because I'm a liner note guy.
In terms of recording. And being there at the recording of the record, yes.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've been involved for 20 years.
For sure. You've been a couple of records that you've been at every band practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's we're
It's like a slow
band.
Yeah. And always working in the studio on stuff, and just being there somehow, and also on the road too for sure, on and off. And I did that. In relation to Rad Dads, it's there was a period where I had to stop touring because it was my kids were at that age. It was we just moved to Austin, maybe 2006, and I kind of needed to be more hands-on. They were, getting into elementary school, and so but that's I feel like, and then I think it was 2018. I saw you in Dallas as a trio, and I said. I asked Daniel to get me on the tour because I saw you were playing Bikini, which was in Toulouse, France, which is the best venue there. And it was and I thought, well, this would be just, one tour maybe. And then I said, but my kids are grown now, and I can, they don't need me as much anymore. So and that's when I kind of joined full time.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting too. That's also something that comes up a lot on our podcast. We talk to lots of musicians, and so as their kids age. Yeah. Their needs and how they sort of cope with everything as a band changes too, right? Working around schedules. Your daughter's getting a little bit older, Ira, now, so it's not as big a deal to get her to school on time or those kinds of things maybe. But Matthew, you've got a young son at home too, and so
I do, yeah.
So that's a different case for you, and so the way you're sort of managing with touring or recording, it's probably a little bit different from the other guys. Yeah, so how do you kind of find that balance?
Well, we put a limit on how long we go out now.
Yeah.
A long time ago we didn't, and we used to go on 6-7 week tours, and now it's 3.
Yeah.
And it's an amount of time that it seems like my kid's okay with it, but it's not great, and it's very important to check in a lot. Well, but what I do to balance it out is that when I'm home, I'm so all in.
Yeah.
I spend as much time with him as possible.
Which is really a gift that a lot of other parents don't have, right? So there's definitely that trade-off, and it's funny, a few years ago, we participated in this dad's group. It was a weekend. It was during COVID. It was a weekend, Saturday morning thing, and just a whole bunch of random dads got together. It was organized by YMCA, and we were kind of as rad dads, kind of helping to chair it or whatever. We didn't know what we were doing, but it's really interesting because there was a guy in that group who was a truck driver, and his experience as a parent was actually very similar to a lot of musicians I talked to. He's like, I'm gone for a long period of time, but then when I'm home, I'm home. And so it's interesting. Like we all have to.
Always travel, always moving. You're in transit. I could see. I could well imagine myself an interstate truck driver, hauling from state to state through the night, listening to Christian radio. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that sounds good. So Louie, just quickly back to your involvement with the band. That this album also sees a full song written by you, "Losing," which you're playing on tour as well.
Yeah.
I saw last night. It was wonderful. It's fantastic. And what I really like about that song, and I kind of want to maybe ask you guys about this, but one of the things I've really noticed about your band, and certainly with Moon Mirror as an album, is very hopeful. In a time when I think we really need it, or at least I really need it. Very selfishly, it's a nice therapy for me, right? We just had our Canadian federal election yesterday. And so it was I was at your show, and I was actually, again, like being a bad audience member and kind of like looking at the election results. It was happening. But it is a time when there's a lot of stress and anger, and just people don't know how to interact with each other in a kind way anymore, it feels like. And I find one of the messages of Moon Mirror really that comes across is that hopefulness, and that's always been a part of your music. But it's funny, I remember listening to "Losing" the first time and thinking, oh wow, this is a really sad song.
It's a downer. It's a real downer. I gotta say, and you'll find out why it's not such a downer in a second. But
yeah, so I want to hear that, but it's funny because I'm listening, and then the bridge comes in. And I think that was your contribution, that little short bridge that kind of says, "This is just today, this will go away." And I'm like, oh, there it is.
That's it.
Like there's the hopefulness, right?
And that's Matthew. Matthew added that bridge. And other than that, the song is a downer. It's a list of every possible thing you could lose.
Yeah.
People, dreams and, opportunities, stuff like that. Just time, you're getting older, you're losing your life day by day, kind of. And it was but the music though, when I did the demo was, I always like to do downer lyrics with the happy sounding. It was, the music is kind of
that's
happy
a real
sounding.
Beatles kind of thing too, right?
And it was really
Run for your life.
The demo, demo.
Right, and the flip of it that Ira and I sometimes would play this song sitting around the tour bus is Every Little Thing by the Beatles is such a miracle because the lyrics are totally Hallmark happy.
Yeah.
I know I'm a lucky guy. She'll love me forever. Everything's great, but the melody's so sad.
Yeah.
You know that he's just trying to pretend everything's okay, but something is wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, I always thought the chorus of "Losing" is so ecstatic. That's the thing that really drew me to the song, is that the lyrics are a downer, but it's also kind of like as if there's a release of, you're about to say.
No, it's like, you're right. You're right. It's, what happens is like, I'm floating, I'm bending, I'm bowed, I'm like, it's just like, you kind of like just give in a little bit, and it's like, okay, this is what it is. It's, it's okay.
This is just where I am.
I'm acceptance, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what that was, and it was, so, and that worked really well with that in that chorus with the chords, the way the guitars were chiming in the millions of harmonies and stuff. So it's very happy sounding.
Yeah, beautiful song. I love it, and I love that you guys are playing that song, but also lots of new songs from Moon Mirror on this tour. Like, what a joy for some of us who have seen you many times and want to hear the new songs, right? And which I think are some of the best songs you've written. Like Intel and Dreams. I love that song. My kids love that song because it talks about their older sister, right? So I have two daughters, and so they really like that part. Floater, you guys just played it at Soundcheck. Beautiful. Just, some of your best songs. And so I think one of the things that really strikes me about this record, many of your records, but this record in particular, as like a longtime fan, when people ask me, oh, hey, I don't really know Not a Surf that well. What record should I check out? A lot of people they'll go back to your like, let go, Weight is a Gift or something, right? I feel 100% confident recommending hey, start with Moon Mirror. Like this is some of their best stuff. This is, you know, and I just think it's such a testament to the songwriting and the vision. And it just feels like you guys are so relaxed. I mean, maybe part of that is Rockfield too. Like there's kind of a airiness and openness that's captured in that record and also the previous one. So yeah, I just, you know, sort of want to thank you for that because it's amazing as a longtime fan as well.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, and in terms of, I kind of want to maybe end it on this piece, and that's to talk a little bit about New Propeller. Mm-hmm. And so, because New Propeller, I think, is one of the songs that really stands out to me too, as, you know, a lot of your songs, Matthew, I think are very introspective and about me. And I find New Propeller, I'm sure that's where it comes from too, but it's kind of this commentary on the world around us, right? I know it's, people have asked, is it AI? Is it, you know, but I think it's kind of everything, right? Like, it's the social change that's happened.
I started it in 2016. I started writing it way back then and put it aside for a while. And it was during that presidential campaign. And what I meant by the propeller, I was imagining not an airplane propeller, but a ship's propeller.
Ship, yeah.
One of those, you know, if you see a photo of like the Queen Mary propeller, it's a particular photo that I've seen. It, you know, it's huge in this murky water, and it churns it up and causes chaos. You know, and so I think that's what I was addressing, is this new chaos. There seems to be a new level of it. I know it's built of elements that have always been around, unfortunately, but there just seemed to be this new, it's almost like a, you know, a media and social kraken that's been released. Like something is up.
Yeah.
And that is what it's about. And, you know, 3 nights ago, I guess I'll do it again, but right before playing it, I said, this is a song about America. And it sort of, it made me sad to say it out loud. You know, I didn't want to bum out the room, but that's really it. It's a song about present day America.
America is a bit of a metaphor though, right? Like, I think as a Canadian,
yeah. What does it mean? You know, what does that mean to you? And how do you know?
Yeah, as a Canadian, I'm really interested in.
Well, yeah, and so I think, you know, a lot of the discourse happening in Canadian politics, and we're not going to get into politics, but I'll just say this, is kind of the threat in Canada of the kind of the American way, you know, and so our election was very much about that issue, I think, and the Liberals came out on top, which you know, you feel however you want about that. But I think a lot of people felt that was a rejection of what you're talking about. I'm not saying about being American. We love our American neighbors. And
everyone knows about that.
Yes. Yeah. You know, it's about that feeling, right? There's this, I can't remember what the lyric is. There's this growing feeling, right? And that's what it is, right? This, like, can we keep that down under the surface? Can we not let that out? Right. And so I find that song very powerful. I'm curious, like, you have kids that you've brought into this world. Like, how do you talk about that with them? How do you address?
Sorry.
Well, and I'm not saying like you should feel guilty about it. I've also brought kids into this world. We have to, you know, but how do you address that threat? I guess I'll say, right?
You know, when I was 9, 10, 11, it was sort of, I don't know where on the timeline of the Cold War that is exactly, but it was like in 1978, 79, and there was this book called The Day After that a lot of kids had, and it was like a cartoon book, and it was about what would happen if there was a nuclear war, you know. So, and my parents didn't exactly talk to me about that, but I feel like, and I don't know if it'll sound too corny, but you just have to love them.
Yeah.
As hard as you can. And that will give them as much armor as anything else. And in fact, that's the armor that nobody else can give them.
Right.
Is that parental love. And and just double down on that, because unfortunately, maybe they're going to really need it.
You know, mine is 14, so she's becoming politically aware, you know, living in Florida. It's interesting because, you know, I think she knows herself to be a New Yorker, so she knows she's kind of an alien in a certain way here in Florida, but she's very at home there. But, you know, so her politics come from my sort of left-wing politics, and she's picked up, so we're very on the same wavelength. But I do worry, I'm concerned about like where is she getting, she's getting her news off on TikTok or,
Right.
So I try to have, she listens to me, listen to whatever political kind of radio I listen to. So, but I'll talk to her about like what her sources are and, keep asking questions and so forth. Don't take anything for granted. Yeah, but she does the same thing I do. I'm like, she'll watch the other news channel, like the tone is completely other and angry and divisive. Tone is everything. But so for me, it's an interesting period where she's becoming politically aware and living in a politically aware environment where and LGBTQ stuff is being challenged all around her and in the state particularly. So we're very, very aware.
Totally. One other thing, of course, and model the values that you want to see in the politicians that represent you, and model those values in front of your kids so that they'll know. And then if they're watching, we're pretty liberal with what our child watches, but if somebody's being uncool to somebody else, we'll say, oh, well, this isn't, maybe we should change the show, or, he's not being nice, etc. I'm just to say it's exactly that. You
modeling what you would want for them with the behaviors or attitudes that you think are positive in the world.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe so they can recognize when they're being wronged, when they're seeing something wrong that's happening, right? They know what that looks like.
Critical mind.
Yeah. You said it, Matthew. Like it's, let's go back to the Beatles again. Love is all you need, right? That's sort of what you said. Right. And I think that's kind of the message that comes through in much of your music and also in Moon Mirror, right? Is that like, yes, I'm struggling. Yes, the world is working against me sometimes, but I just need to find that love and that peace. And it is out there, right? It's so hopeful. And it's like I said earlier, the therapy that I and many people need right now, to cope. And it's just so wonderful. And I just want to thank you for the record.
Thank you.
Tonight, Boulder is an all ages show. So, I'm hoping that maybe that's going to bring some childish energy and love into the room. I don't know. My kids are going to be here. I'm really excited. They're very excited.
We're so glad they're coming.
Yeah.
So glad they're coming.
It's one of the great things about the show is there's a lot of parents up front with kids. It's great, such a great thing to see.
There were a few last night too, and I thought that was so cool. I just love seeing it. I don't like seeing it when it looks like the kids just want to be somewhere else.
For sure.
Yeah, it does happen for sure. But that was not the case last night. It was really cool watching the couple of kids that were up in front of me last night. So thank you for doing all ages shows. They aren't very common, but some of us really appreciate it. So thank you. And congratulations on the new record and the tour. It's been lovely meeting you. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.